Hello, welcome to the Utah Valley University Environmental Ethics Symposium of 2020. I'm Maria Blevins. I'm a professor of communication in the communication department. I'm here with Dr. Lindley from the outdoor recreation department. In this series, we're highlighting Utah Valley University community members and how environmental ethics figures into their teaching, research, and their lives. Dr. Lindley, tell me a little about your journey to become an outdoor recreation professor.
Well, I figured out relatively early that teaching was what I wanted to do, and I wasn't really sure the how and the where of that. And then the college that I went to had a ropes course class, and that really hooked me into this first idea of outdoor education and how much people could learn, how much it built community, and how different it was than all of the rest of the classes I was taking. So that was a big turning point for me. I was good at school and I didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated, so I went to grad school and studied outdoor education and outdoor recreation there. And then that, again, I graduated and I would have never believed I would have gone back to get a PhD. I, through some mentors and some opportunities, ended up teaching college with a master's degree, and that set me forward into thinking that this is what I wanted to do. And I just can't say how important mentors have been in my life, people who gave me opportunities, whether it was the guy I worked for in college who didn't pay me, but I got to go on every rafting, kayaking, outdoor trip that he ran. I got paid in experiences, and I loaded a lot of boats, but I got to paddle a lot and see how somebody worked. And then continuing on, just excellent mentors at every turn of the road that helped to set me to where I am and what I'm doing. So
cool. How does environmental ethics fit into your job of being an outdoor rec professor?
Well, the reality is that the environment is both the place and the curriculum a lot of times for what we're doing. Obviously, we spend a lot of time in the outdoors. I think in the bigger picture of environmental ethics, it's the decisions that we make and the political pieces that are there. For us, it's almost as much or more a land ethic. How do we act towards the land in these places that we are and at these places that we're taking students? And so we are dependent upon an environment, but we're also dependent upon access. And we are lucky to live in a public land state where access is pretty incredible. But I think there's always competing uses for that land. And so that is a piece that is constantly there. A few years ago, there was Rock Canyon is a super important place in Utah County. People climb there, people hike there, people do all kinds of stuff. And the mouth of that canyon was actually privately owned. And so there was a bit of a brouhaha over what's going to happen. Are we going to sell it? Is somebody going to close it off? There was rumor of it being turned into a gravel pit. And all of these user groups came together and said, this is not okay. And so how do we navigate those pieces? We also live in a place that's growing really, really fast. I have people who tell me they used to hunt where my house is. And lots of places like that are out there as well. So the public lands is both a privilege and a responsibility, and public lands encompasses everything from the city of Lehigh parks to the national parks that we have in this state. And those are all a piece of how this works. So it's hard to talk about a land ethic without talking about Aldo Leopold. And Leopold says that when we see land as a community to which we belong, we may begin to use it with love and respect. And I think that's so important. Almost everyone who lives in Utah uses public lands in some way, shape, or fashion. I'm still blown away that I can leave my house and cross a wilderness boundary in under 30 minutes. And that's just a piece of how do we act? How do we protect those things that we care about? And how does that all fit into what we're doing? And for me, it's both a personal passion and professionally, if those lands aren't there, then it makes it very hard for me to do my job.
Yeah, that's interesting that ethic not only fits into your personal ethos, but it is a huge part of the Utah economy. And I think that's a discussion we don't have that often.
Right, and the Governor's Office of Economic Development has been doing a ton of good. We have a Utah Outdoor Recreation Director, and that's a very new thing in Western states. There's a great grant program that municipalities can access funding in order to build recreational infrastructure, be it trails, sometimes it's parking lots and bathrooms. We have trail infrastructure there, but we don't have great ways for the public to access those pieces. I believe, and my numbers may be a couple years old, $6 billion in outdoor recreation-related revenue happens in the state of Utah, and that's significant. And that doesn't even count the quality of life piece that is much harder to put a number on. I live here for those reasons, and I know a lot of other people do as well.
Yeah. Can you tell me about Leave No Trace and what that means as an outdoor recreator?
Awesome. So Leave No Trace is just the simple idea that we want to leave places better than we found them. And that's as simple as packing out the trash that you brought in with you. It's as challenging as figuring out what to do with human waste and everything in between. I lead trips. I take large numbers of people, groups of 10 or 12, out into these places, and large groups have larger impacts. The important thing to remember, though, is that they can have positive impacts as well as negative impacts. I would hesitate to guess how many fire rings and how many pounds of trash that my groups and I have carried out of the woods over the course of my career. And individually, it's not that much, but over time, a group of people can have a really positive impact on a place. And so as recreationists, thinking about how and where and what, how can I minimize my impact here? Can I camp or walk on the trail where somebody's camped before? Can I take my trash out at minimum? But also, if I see pieces of trash on the trail, can I pick those up as well? How do I handle managing my dog when I'm out there? How do I interact with other user groups, other people? We're sharing these trails with more and more people. All of us have been out in the last 6 months and have seen an incredible increase in usage during COVID of these outdoor spaces, which is phenomenal for our mental health, physical health, but can be a little bit challenging on the resources when we really have a lot of people out more so than normal and who may not be used to being out and making decisions from the idea of a Leave No Trace standpoint.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we have kind of implicitly been talking about being outside, being good for people, right? That, that experience in that ropes course class had a profound effect on you. But can you talk to me a little bit about how you think maybe socially, mentally, and physically being outside makes a person's life better or more joyful or...
Yeah, and I think we all have anecdotal stories of that, how important it is, how when it's all going bad, sometimes just getting outside is something important that we can do. But there's also a lot of research behind it as well. Research in just the difference, and it's not just activity. There's research that says physical activity is also good for us physically, mentally, spiritually, but the outdoors is good for us as well. Research that looks at the difference between walking in a park versus walking on a treadmill. And we have different physical reactions when we do that. Even as simple as looking at pictures of the outdoors on computer screens changes people's stress levels and stress hormones. Many programs are starting to arise to help people do this. The Wounded Warriors programs are using all kinds of outdoor activities to help returning veterans with their physical and psychological challenges that they are facing, from fly fishing to rafting to backpacking, and sometimes it's even just building community. A guy by the name of Stacy Bear was working for the Sierra Club. He's a veteran. He also has started his own company and is working with people to build community. And the goal is community. The place that they're doing it is the outdoors. Yeah. There's some folks at Cal Berkeley who are looking at the science of awe, how just being blown away by the beauty of a place is important. There's also a world out there that's trying to figure out, how do we prescribe nature? How does the medical profession prescribe nature in a way that helps people? And even in places that have less economic privilege, is it putting people on a bus? There's a doctor, I can't remember where he lives, but he has the walk with a doctor every Saturday morning in a local city park. And it's not a requirement, but he just tells people, hey, at 9 a.m. I'll be in the city park and we're going to walk for an hour. We're going to walk, we're going to talk, we're going to do whatever it is. So the medical community is starting to see, and we're starting to see through research, that there is both physical, mental, and emotional value to the outdoors. And it's not just anecdotal. It's not just, I feel better when I'm there. The science is showing that. Now we have to figure out how to make the economics of medicine and the economics of other things work so that that is a reasonable outcome. The old school studies of hospital rooms that could see into a park or into trees or into something natural versus hospital rooms that are looking out on another building, and it actually enhances patient recovery. So I know personally, for me, anecdotally, the outdoors is incredibly important. It's healing. It's an escape. It's a simpler way of living. If I can live out of this backpack for a week or a month, why do I need all of this stuff that I have in my house? I need to eat. I need to walk. And I need to sleep, and that's a powerful thing in my world. But it's not just that. A guy by the name of Richard Louv has written a book called Last Child in the Woods, talking about how kids need not only time outside but free play. A guy by the name of David Sobel also talks very much about the importance of free play. It's awesome for kids to be at soccer practice and to be doing all these organized activities outside. But the social and the cognitive benefits and maturity that comes from kids having to navigate those spaces. And obviously we need to be aware of safety and all of those things. But we also at some point have to figure out, how do we interact with other humans? And if there's always an adult there saying, yes, you can, no, you can't, then those kids don't ever learn those negotiating skills of the playground, of the woods, of the trees. A more recent book, The Nature Fix by Florence Williams, also delves deeply into the impacts of nature on human health. And it's a wonderful read. She's actually a journalist, is her background. And everything from looking at how other countries, Japan calls it forest bathing, and it's just spending time out in the woods. And as we become a more and more urban society, how and where are we finding those places? And how do we make that? We live in Utah. There's a lot of public lands. There's a lot of trail systems. Typically what happens when the trail builders come in is the people who currently live there don't want trails because they don't want people in my backyard. And then the next people buy those houses because of the trail or the access to parks or whatever it is. So there's actually an economic benefit to that trail infrastructure. We have the Murdoch Trail, we have the Jordan River Trail, we have the Provo River Trail. Most of us here in Utah County and in Salt Lake County have access to trails, and there's also documented health benefits of people that live within X number of miles of trails that they can access. They're more likely to get outside and walk if they feel like there's a safe place to do so.
That's like a lot of really good evidence about how the outdoors can help a human. And then we also connected to, having access to those spaces is important through land policy. I would ask, if the outdoors is so positive on individuals, how can individuals be positive to the outdoors? So you talked a little bit about leaving it better than you find it, picking up garbage. Do you have any other sort of piece of advice that you can give to people about when they're in the wilderness or even just outside?
I think one of the things is trying to, I hesitate because it's both a pro and a con, but I think expanding our worlds. So we all know that there's trailheads that are hammered. Is there somewhere else that we can go? For instance, here in Utah County, Mount Timpanogos, hugely popular. Tons of people hike Timpanogos every year. But there's a lot of other peaks here in Utah County, from Nebo to Box Elder to Lone Peak. There's a lot of other mountains to climb. If it's going to be on a Saturday during July, can I choose to go somewhere else? Can I disperse that impact? Can I think about, hey, maybe these other people don't know that there's other places to go. I'm going to seek out a trailhead that's less used and less popular so that I'm going to decrease a little bit of impact on that place. I have friends that work for the Forest Service, and on busy days on Timpanogos, people are literally parking 2 miles down the road from the trailhead. So adding to that all-day hike is 2 miles of road on the front end and 2 miles of road on the back end. Can I go another day? Can I go another time? Can I go another place? Temp's going to be there. Have I hiked Box Elder? Have I hiked Nebo? Have I hiked Cascade Peak, Provo Peak? What are those other places that I can go? And then just also thinking about different times of day and different times of year. How can we spread out our impact on these places? Because we have positive impacts and we also have negative impacts on these places that we care about a lot. And I'm so excited to see so many people at these places. I'm glad that people are outside using them instead of inside watching Netflix or playing video games or doing whatever they're doing. But there's also a cost to that, both to the resource and to us. I don't love being on a trail with a ton of other people. So I choose to go different places and different times to help mitigate that for my own personal sanity.
That's great. Betsy, is there anything I forgot to ask you in regard to ethics and outdoor recreation?
I think what I would end with is this idea that there's a public process for all of these public lands, from Lehigh City parks to Utah state parks to national parks. And something that I try and introduce my students to is know about what's going on with the places that you care about. All of these things are created by some kind of statute, whether it's a law at the federal level, whether it's city council policy, and they can all go away. If we don't care about them, if you're not involved in knowing what's happening to the places that you like to recreate or the places around the places you like to recreate, then things are going to happen, and those things, if we as a community don't value those places, then maybe they're not going to be there. We've decided they're valuable, and so we keep them there. If nobody uses them, and if we decide that they're not valuable, somebody's going to look to make a buck off of them. That city park in the city that you live in, it's worth way more to somebody if they subdivide it and put however many more houses on it. But what do we lose as a community when it's not there? I think it's important that we vote because voting is how we have a say in the process. It's how we help to impact who is sitting in those seats and making those decisions. And again, those decisions affect my quality of life. And so I am very much interested in them. And I guess the last thing I would do is I would finish with a quote from Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
He wrote a book called The Lorax. And the last line in The Lorax says, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. We live in a place where we have amazing access to public lands. We take that for granted. I firmly believe that everybody in the West should go live in the East for 2 years, where you have to pay to access land to recreate on or own it or lease it. and that would give us a new view on just how lucky we are to have access to all of these lands, and that we should take care of them in the micro. What I do on these lands impacts them, but we should also care about them in the macro. What are the decisions that are being made, and how can I be a part of saving and protecting these lands that I think are important?
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate the chance to talk. 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 Talk.